Introducing the schedule for your 2013 defending Coastal Division champion Duke Blue Devils. They started off August 30th with a game against Elon. Okay, get the easy one out of the way, Duke, and get rolling toward a 2014 repeat division championship. That second game, September 6th, they take on Troy on the road. Then on September 13th, Duke bows up and takes on Kansas. Good basketball matchup. Duke, Kansas. Wow, Danny Manning. Yeah. All right, September 20th. Okay. Fourth non-conference game. Now finally going to play that big marquee landmark game for 2014 out of conference, and it's Tulane. All right, Duke. Time to step it up. You won a division championship. You went to the ACC championship game. Will not mention how it went from there, but you played in the ACC championship game, and this is your non-conference schedule. Forget even that. I understand that these games mostly were scheduled years ago. Not that long ago. You're not scheduling Elon in 2002 for a 2014 date. They were scheduled a few years ago. At the same time, Duke, you're in the ACC. You've played a little bit better in football in recent years and then really broke out last season. Play somebody. Play somebody in the SEC. Play somebody in the Big Ten. Play Northwestern. We talk about Northwestern. Between Northwestern, Stanford, Wake, Vanderbilt, Duke, some of the academic schools in the Power 5 conferences, play one another. That would at least be a bit of a challenge. Duke could have some issues at Troy. That's a possibility. Troy typically fields very athletic football teams that regularly compete against the SEC. Troy usually plays 2 or 3 SEC opponents. So Troy could be difficult on the road in Alabama. But again, Elon, Troy, Kansas, Tulane. That's Duke's schedule to start it out non-conference. They go the 4 non-conference right out of the gate, get those out of the way, right into the ACC. So if Duke is to repeat as division champions and most likely get a rematch with Florida State, whether they like it or not, in the ACC championship game, okay, let's look at the teams that they play out of division. So again, we go through this just about every time, but if this is the first time you've seen a schedule breakdown that we've done, we talk about those non-division games in particular because Duke, against its division, of course, plays all the same teams. So in trying to win a division championship over the likes of Miami, Virginia Tech, Virginia, and some of the other better teams in that division like Georgia Tech, they have to beat them. They play the same exact schedule. So the real difference in the schedule is the out-of-division games because they're so different. Because in the ACC, you've got 14 teams, and they play an 8-game schedule. So they're missing 5 opponents. So that's critical. Duke, in the other division, takes on Syracuse on November 8th, and their last game of the season against Wake Forest at home. So that's not a bad deal for Duke. Not only do they play Elon, Troy, Tulane, and Kansas out of conference, in conference, in place of the likes of Florida State, Clemson, and Louisville in the other division, they play Syracuse on the road, and they play Wake to close out the season. I think Duke's in line to possibly equal its record of last season when they went 9-4 before their bowl loss. This is possible. I think they actually went 10-3, didn't they, in the ACC after losing the championship game to Florida State and then losing to Texas A&M in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Because they're going to win the 4 games non-conference. They should. Again, Troy could be a difficult game. Tulane, they've got at home. They've got all those games at home except the trip to Alabama to take on Troy. Then they dive into ACC play with a couple of difficult games on the road. So Duke could get into a bit of a hole. They take on Miami on the road and Georgia Tech in Atlanta as well. Those are going to be difficult for the Blue Devils to navigate. Again, they took on the Canes last year. They trailed in that game 10-0 and 17-7, and then they really turned it on, and that was a key to the division championship run late last season, defeating Miami 48-30. Blew out the Canes in the second half. But again, it's at Miami, at Georgia Tech, two teams that have superior overall team speed and athleticism to Duke, but two teams that they handled last season. Then they take on Virginia at home, need to win that game. Then they have the quick 2-game road trip against Pitt and Syracuse, two teams that they can definitely handle. Again, another key component to that championship run for a division in 2013 was a win against Pitt. I believe it was like 58-55 in 3 overtimes or something. That was a big game for Duke on its run last season. At Pitt, at Syracuse, and then they finish off with 3 home games. Pretty challenging, though, against Virginia Tech and North Carolina. North Carolina, a team on a Thursday night that Duke will probably need to beat to win that division if they're in position to do it at that point, because we've talked about the ACC. Florida State, Clemson. Then possibly a half rung down is Louisville. And then throw a blanket over the likes of Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, again, possibly Louisville, probably again Miami, Duke. We'll see how good Syracuse and Pitt are. Boston College as we taper off to the bottom tier with Wake and some other teams down there. They finish off, again, talking about Duke in November with 3 home games, Virginia Tech, North Carolina on a Thursday night, and Wake to close it out. So I like Duke probably going 4-0 non-conference, although the slip-up at Troy would not surprise me. They could lose to Tulane, a team that jumped out and got to a bowl game for the first time in 2014, for the first time 2013 in 11 years. Duke then, again, a lot of toss-up games at Miami, at Georgia Tech. They need to split there. Then they've got Virginia, Pitt, and Syracuse need to sweep those 3. Virginia Tech, then North Carolina, and Wake need to win 2 out of 3 there. If they do that, then they're 6-2 in the ACC, most likely win the division and march on to another date against Florida State. All right, I can see this team in conference going anywhere from that 6-2 down to about as low as 3-5 or 4-4. Even the 4-4 record with a 4-0 non-conference record gets them to 8-4. It's still a very good season for Duke, and they get a decent bowl berth from that. All right, Duke fans, before we talk basketball starting in November, let's look at this football team with the 4 Gibbies in the non-conference slate and not having to face Florida State, Louisville, and Clemson non-division games. I think you're set up for quite a nice season, possibly 9 or 10 wins for Duke this fall. Let's talk about it. Duke football right here on Mark Rogers TV.